Asia markets start the week off higher as investors assess regional data. US President-elect Donald Trump issues a stark warning to the BRICS nations, threatening 100% tariffs if they challenge dollar dominance. And coffee prices surge to multi-decade highs, boosting profits for Colombian farmers. Hello, I'm Taiba Aydin with the latest business and finance news here on TRT World. Asia-Pacific markets opened the week on a positive note, buoyed by encouraging economic data from China. Investors are closely monitoring upcoming economic indicators from key regional economies, including Japan, South Korea and China, to gauge the trajectory of the region's economic recovery. The official Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, for China rose to 50.3 in November, up from 50.1 in October, marking the highest level since April. The Caixin S&P Global Manufacturing PMI, which focuses more on smaller firms, increased to 50.5 in November. Meanwhile, South Korea's exports grew by 1.4% year-on-year in November, the slowest pace since September 2023, missing economists' expectations of a 2.8% increase. Japan's Nikkei 225 index experienced marginal gains, while the broader topics rose by 0.68%, reflecting cautious optimism among investors. And retail sales in Australia increased by 3.4% year-on-year in October, marking the fastest rise since May 2023. The S&P ASX 200 index started the day up 0.16%, influenced by strong performances on Wall Street. Let's get more on this now with Inky Cho in Kuala Lumpur. He's a financial market strategist at XNES. Thanks for joining us, Inky. Now, how significant are China's recent PMI figures in assessing the state of its manufacturing sector?
Good morning, Aiden. It's a pleasure to be here. Speaking about the Chinese manufacturing industry, the November Caixin manufacturing PMI, which is a key sign of how Chinese companies feel about the economy, jumped to 51.5, increasing by 1.2 points from last month. And this rise shows that China's manufacturing sector has recovered for 2 months in a row after dropping below 50 in September, signaling a move toward economic growth. And looking at the latest trends in the manufacturing scene in China, both supply and demand are picking up pace. And the production index and new order index have both moved into the expansion phase, and the demand, which was struggling before, is starting to bounce back. Plus, it's great to see manufacturers ramping up their purchases, with the purchase volume index hitting a 4-year high in November. But it is worth mentioning that the manufacturing employment index is still below the crucial 50 mark, and there are still some challenges, economic challenges. So while there are promising signs that the Chinese economy just hit the bottom, we cannot say that the Chinese economy is in a full upswing yet.
Right. Meanwhile, South Korea's exports grew significantly slower than expected. What's contributed to that, and how is it impacting South Korea's economy?
Well, it's very important to point out that there's a pretty gloomy vibe around Korean exports lately, especially with the U.S. ramping up protectionist trade policies since Donald Trump took the chair. And last November, Korean exports only increased by 1.4% compared to the previous year, marking the slowest growth since October last year. And this slowdown isn't just about the potential tariff risks from the U.S., but there are also some structural issues at play, like the increasing competition from Chinese companies in the semiconductor space and the record high domestic household debt, which is holding back the overall consuming spending in Korea. In that sense, going forward, we really need to keep an eye on the Fed's rate decisions. If the Fed decided to cut rates, it could give a boost to global demand and help out Korean exports. But we might see Korea's export growth keep sliding until at least the second quarter of next year before we really feel any impact from those rate cuts by the Fed.
All right, Inky Cho, financial market strategist at XNES. Thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you.
Now, Donald Trump has threatened 100% tariffs on BRICS plus nations if they pursue a new currency to challenge the US dollar. It shows the president-elect's determination to protect the dollar's global dominance. But this move raises concerns about potential trade disruptions and economic instability, with the international community closely watching the repercussions. Firstly, how do tariffs work? Tariffs are taxes placed on goods coming into a country. For example, if a $10,000 shipment of electronics is taxed at 25%, it adds $2,500 to the price. While Trump says these taxes hurt other countries, it's actually businesses in the US that pay, often passing the extra cost to customers. The BRICS nations collectively represent over 40% of the world's population and approximately 25% of global GDP. A 100% tariff on BRICS exports to the US could disrupt trade flows, leading to increased costs for American consumers and businesses. Such tariffs may prompt member states to seek alternative markets, potentially realigning global trade partnerships. Last year, the US imported goods worth approximately $500 billion from BRICS countries. Imposing 100% tariffs could lead to higher prices for consumer goods, contributing to inflationary pressures. American companies reliant on BRICS imports might face supply chain disruptions, affecting production and profitability. The US dollar index rose by 0.5% following the tariff threat, reflecting increased demand for the dollar amid geopolitical tensions. Conversely, BRICS currencies experienced volatility, with the Chinese yuan and Indian rupee depreciating against the dollar. Let's get more analysis on this now from Shrikant Kondapalli. He's the Dean of the School of International Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. Good to have you with us. Now, how realistic is the BRICS bloc's ambition to create a new currency to rival the US dollar?
Thank you for having me on the show. The Kazan meeting in Russia discussed about the BRICS currency, and even before the Johannesburg meeting as well. And so there is the idea that BRICS countries should discuss, circulate in their local currencies, or even forming a BRICS currency of all these countries put together. However, this is only a proposal right now, and the nitty-gritty aspects have to be worked out, and that is where the key problem is. And in between, as you mentioned, President-elect Trump had announced 100% tariffs on the BRICS countries. So this could probably act as a deterrent in terms of the BRICS making the next move. However, in the first term of Trump, before 56% of his promises, electoral promises, have not been implemented. Secondly, it looks like Trump is looking for a trade bargain, a big bargain with the trading countries of the United States. And last week he announced 25% tariffs on Mexican, Canadian, and also additional tariffs on China, 10%. He had also mentioned in the election campaign about 60% tariffs on all Chinese products. So this is the broader aspect. However, BRICS countries are divided at this moment in terms of what should be the path, whether there should be a single currency, a local currency, a basket of currencies, and so on. Their concern basically is on sanctions that were imposed on Russia following the Ukrainian conflict. Secondly, the kind of economic decline that some of the BRICS countries were witnessing. Brazil, South Africa, to an extent China, from 10% growth rate to about 5%. And if these tariffs are to be imposed on the Chinese goods, a Fudan University report suggested that there will be 3 times impact on the Chinese economy with these tariffs on the Chinese products. So that is the concern some Chinese have on the proposed 100% tariffs.
Right, and what could be the broader global repercussions beyond BRICS and the US if the tariffs were to go through?
One is on the stock exchanges. We did see some impact on Shanghai Stock Exchange and others. And secondly, there is also a marginal impact on the currency valuations, which is also crucial for the BRICS countries to consider whether they have to look for a single currency, BRICS currency, to diversify from the US dollar. So that is the second impact on currency valuations. Third, in terms of the export itself from the BRICS countries, so we could probably see some decline in the exports given the kind of tariffs that President-elect Trump is proposing.
And how might these tariffs affect American consumers?
Economists suggest that there will be inflation. The costs of the consumers, as you mentioned before, would increase because of the increase in tariffs. So there will be the products, imported products would be much more costlier, as you mentioned, but also in terms of inflation, domestic inflation increasing in United States. There is a study which suggests that the tariff increases will only marginally improve the job condition in the United States, as well as in terms of the industry, as this is linked to the industry shift from other countries to United States, as the electoral promises have been.
Okay, Professor Shrikant Kondapalli, we will have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you.
Now, it's not just BRICS nations who are in Donald Trump's crosshairs. Businesses and workers, particularly in cities along the Mexico border, are also bracing for President-elect's new term. Amai Bakalolo has the story.
During his first term, Donald Trump left a lasting mark on U.S. trade policies. He weaponized tariffs, renegotiated NAFTA, and even pledged to build a border wall with its biggest trading partner, Mexico. As he now prepares to return to the White House, his playbook doesn't seem to have changed much. On Monday, he announced plans to impose a 25% tariff on goods imported from Mexico and Canada and charge an additional 10% tariff on China, setting the stage for another round of trade wars. But the impact won't be just felt abroad, it could also ripple across the U.S. economy. For border towns in Texas, where jobs and businesses heavily rely on trade with Mexico, the consequences could be devastating.
We are going to see how things will progress once the president-elect takes office on January 20. But the messages they have been sending, saying they want to raise tariffs, calling the border conflictive, talking of issues like violence and migration, they are not contributing to all of the investments that could come.
In 2023, trade between Texas and Mexico alone reached $272 billion, making Mexico the state's #1 trading partner. Higher tariffs could particularly hit U.S. car makers, which operate manufacturing facilities on both sides of the border.
One tariff will lead to another, creating a domino effect that puts our shared businesses at serious risk. Take Mexico's main exporters to the US, like General Motors, Stellantis and Ford, companies that have been operating here for over 80 years. Why impose a tax that threatens their stability? It's unacceptable and would only result in inflation and job losses for both the US and Mexico.
Mexico says it might have to respond with its own tariffs, which could make things worse for the world's largest economy.
If we impose a 25% tariff on the companies I mentioned and many others, the impact could be severe, potentially affecting an estimated 400,000 jobs in the United States.
As Trump's inauguration approaches, trade wars could damage the economies of all four nations, putting businesses and jobs at risk. Ömer Bakalolu, TRT World.
Now a quick look at some of the other top business stories from around the world. Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares has resigned, marking an abrupt exit for one of the automotive industry's most prominent leaders. His departure comes 2 months after the maker of Jeep, Fiat and Peugeot cars issued a profit warning citing broader industry challenges. Tariffs had led the group since its creation in 2021 through the merger of PSA and Fiat Chrysler. US President Joe Biden has pardoned his son Hunter, sparing him from a possible prison sentence. Previously, Biden promised not to use his presidential powers for the benefit of his family. The move comes just weeks before Hunter was set to be sentenced for tax and gun crimes. Biden says he hopes Americans will understand his position, alleging his son's prosecution was politically motivated. Two of Australia's biggest gold miners have agreed to a $3.2 billion takeover deal as rising gold prices continue to drive consolidation in the sector. Northern Star Resources will acquire rival De Grey Mining in an all-share transaction. The deal includes a 37% premium to De Grey's current share price. And thousands of Volkswagen workers begin striking on Monday. The action comes as the auto giant struggles with high costs, slow EV progress and tough competition in China. The German union demanded job protection after Volkswagen proposed plant closures. The company recently reported a 64% drop in third quarter profits and slowing sales in key markets. Arabica coffee prices are reaching levels not seen in 40 years. For farmers in Colombia, this price increase is pushing profits up at a time when growth is declining and output falling. Emre Boz has more.
It's harvest season in Colombia, and these coffee farmers are raking in the profits. Arabica coffee prices are on the rise, climbing to almost $3.30 per pound, their highest level since 1972. It's driven by poor crop output in Brazil, the world's largest producer of coffee, after a severe drought this year. As global supply dwindles, this is pushing up prices, and that's giving a boost to Colombia's economy, which has been shrinking. Economic growth has been declining since the beginning of the year. It's driven by weak private investment and low business confidence. So the rising prices in Arabica coffee is good news for local producers.
This is a boom that allows us to level out a little from the amount of economic burdens that coffee growers have always had.
And as profits stream in, that's increasing output and production in the workforce.
With all the news that the price of coffee has gone up, there has been a lot of increase in work. There are good pickers. There are some who pick 200 kilos a day. Everything has been increasing very well.
Analysts are saying that the Colombian economy will grow more slowly this year than in 2023. But coffee cultivation accounts for about 7 to 8% of GDP in Colombia. And experts are saying that as profits increase, this will help production even more throughout the economy. Emre Boz, TRT World.
Caught in a deadly conflict for a year and a half, Manipur in northeast India is facing an almost paralysed state economy. The business community is in severe distress and private sectors have very few jobs to offer. Entrepreneurs are forced to undertake cost-cutting measures and lay off employees with no signs of recovery. Smita Sharma has more.
Loktak Lake, the largest freshwater lake in India's northeast, was popular with domestic and foreign tourists until ethnic violence flared up in Manipur last year. Tourism slowed and industries plummeted as markets and cities were shut down with violence claiming scores of lives. The state witnessed the longest 212 days of internet shutdown in 2023, and frequent bans continue impacting all business.
I have chain of hotels in Manipur. We basically deals with retail also, but sadly it's been impacted and half of the business has been gone up. So such scenario with the state, I was employing more than 100 employees under me, but now we have only 10 staff under me, which I'm not able to pay the basic salary also regularly.
Thamna Pokpi in Imphal East is a picturesque majority Meitei village, but its proximity to the hills controlled by the warring Kukizo tribes is a curse. Nauton Leitam gave up his city job and used all his investments to start farming after the COVID pandemic. But now the conflict has taken away this source of income from the sole breadwinner in the family.
I spent around to purchase the land like 7 lakhs. And after that, I built up everything and set up, and my pig is approximately like 60, 70 pigs. So when the conflict started, and I have to sell all the pigs because, you know, near my farmland there is a hills area, and there's no safe for us to walk there because of bunkers are there.
The continued violence has driven up prices of food, fuel, and essential items, as well as halting new business plans. But Lana, a sculptor and a boxer in Churachandpur, argues that despite the financial hardships and many challenges, their battles for their land and identity must continue. Otherwise, they fear being killed or becoming refugees.
The cycle of violence in Manipur has turned into a vicious loop. At stake is the future of the youth who are struggling to find jobs, with frequent lockdowns and internet shutdowns adversely impacting the private sector in the state, and not enough government sector opportunities for the bitterly divided communities. Smita Sharma, TRT World, Imphal, Manipur.
Countries negotiating a global treaty to reduce plastic pollution have failed to reach an agreement. The talks are set to resume next year. While most states pushed for a binding agreement to cut plastic production, oil-producing countries opposed it. Frank Smith reports.
Negotiators from 200 countries spent the week drafting a treaty to reduce plastics pollution in Busan, South Korea. Early Monday, the plenum meeting adjourned with no deal. The chair expressed optimism for future talks.
We have made significant progress in Busan. However, our work is far from complete, and we must remain pragmatic as we continue collaborating toward our shared goal.
More than 100 states support production cuts and eliminating toxic chemicals, but for oil and plastic producers, such as Russia and Saudi Arabia, those issues crossed a red line.
So plastic pollution is accelerating what we call the triple planetary crisis. It's accelerating climate change, biodiversity loss, and polluting our communities. Plastics is also threatening human health on an unimaginable scale, and we have to act at a global level to solve what is a global problem.
Small island developing states suffer disproportionately. They want hard production cuts as well as financial support to clean up the plastic garbage littering their waters and shores.
This is plastic that we did not create. It's floated into our oceans. We are now required to ensure the cleanup of this. Where will we take these plastics? This is not a waste management treaty, right? This is a plastics treaty. We should be looking at capping productions.
For the treaty to take effect, it requires a consensus. Some states want that rule changed in order to pass the convention. Around 460 million tons of plastic is now produced each year. That's roughly double the amount from 20 years ago. Around 20 million tons of that plastic makes its way into the environment. Plastic waste can now be found all over the earth, with microscopic nanoparticles increasingly found in animals, in the food chain, and in our bodies and bloodstreams. Observers here suggest to reduce this pollution, there also needs to be a shift in consumer choices.
It is a behavior change. It requires thinking about it, but I also don't think that it's so difficult because we use more and more and more plastic, and sometimes it's just convenience, but it's not necessary.
Those seeking a strong treaty are anxious to get back to talks, possibly early next year. Frank Smith, TRT World, Busan.
Hundreds, possibly thousands of illegal miners have now spent weeks stuck in a gold mine near the South African town of Stilfontein without adequate food or water. 17 people who resurfaced from 2 separate shafts this week have said they were held captive underground. Tshego Fatso Magalego has the story.
Apprehended and accompanied by the South African police services, these illegal miners have not seen the light of day in months. Anguish and despair has been the order of the day for them. They were underground in this disused Stilfontein mine in the northwest province of South Africa to find gold. a commodity that has been their lifeline.
At Shaft 6, there was about 3 people left there. We left about 4 people on our way here. And it was just the 3 of us who managed to resurface today. It is a distance to come out, and the conditions are really cold.
Some of them are just 16 years of age with little protection from the law, often under the control of gangs. With their faces disguised in balaclavas, they are now under arrest. This dark underbelly is costing South Africa nearly $4 billion in 2023.
Someone told me there was some work that I could do in the mines. They told me I could deliver diesel into the mine, but then I was told a different story thereafter. I was told I had to go work in the mine.
Nearly 1 in 10 of the 1,000 miners that have resurfaced are under the age of 18. Most are illegal foreign nationals. They have described to us how they were forced into staying underground while the Southern African Development Community tried to trace their families and provide support. Time is ticking for those who are still underground.
It's really disappointing. It's disappointing and demoralizing that there are no people that have been rescued since this operation has started.
Just a stone's throw away, more than 360 illegal miners appeared before the Stilfontein Magistrates Courts on the same charges.
God gave us the strength to resurface on our own, while others are left behind. We are not sure if the others will resurface or not.
The South African police services are trying to clamp down on all illegal miners, but it is a waiting game on when the South African government's rescue operation will begin. Tshegofatso Magolego, TRT World, Stilfontein, South Africa.
Well, that's all your business news for now. Thanks for watching.